You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hey, it's Michelle. How are you doing? How are you today? I wanted to talk to you about a topic that I personally struggle with very, very much. And although I was married to a really good guy who still struggles with addiction, I by absolutely no means am perfect. My life is not easy breezy, and I still struggle with some really key codependent traits. And one of them is making decisions. Y'all, I'm going to give you an example of how I'm struggling with this in my everyday life today. And then I'm going to talk about how it applied to me when I was in love with someone struggling with addiction. So today, I live in an old home. It was built in 1919, and it is falling apart. It's a disaster. We pray before we turn on the water in the shower, because we're not sure if it's going to be clear or brown, because the pipes are, I think they're original. They're galvanized pipes, I think the plumber said. Anyways, we can't even get plumbers to come out and fix our plumbing because it's such a terrible job. So, anyways, why am I saying this? What does plumbing have to do with anything? We know our bathrooms need to be redone. Okay, we knew that when we moved into the house because we haven't inspected. I love to, if I could do life over again, I probably would do something in interior design. I'd like to think that I'm good at it. I don't know if I am, but I really enjoy it. And so I've gone on Pinterest, I've got all these decorating books, and I'm selecting things for redoing our bathrooms. And we first moved in here about a year ago, and we still haven't started remodeling yet. And this is why. Because I keep changing my mind. I have pulled up, I don't even know. I'm a slightly obsessive compulsive about research. I will own that, but I'm also very proud of that. It's what makes me good at my job. But so I've spent hundreds of hours looking at bathrooms, beyond looking at bathrooms, and changed my mind a gazillion times. And I'm not talking about I'm changing my mind about the tile. I'm changing my mind about the entire bathroom over and over and over again. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a guy talking about self-realization. How aware are you of who you really are? And I thought, my goodness, I have read every self-help book on the shelf since 1982. I have gone to gazillions of hours of therapy. I studied psychology in college. If anyone should be self-realized, it should be me. I mean, I've definitely put in the time. But I would say, if I were to be honest, I'm not entirely there yet. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, what I want, and what I want to change about myself. And I think the reason why I am not fully self-actualized, fully realized, is because I change my mind. One minute I think, okay, I remember when I was younger, I wanted a penthouse apartment in New York City and to be executive and never get married and never have kids and work, just like my dad. And then I was like, nope, that's not at all what I wanted. I wanted to get married, and I wanted a home, and I wanted to be a homemaker, and I wanted to be Martha Stewart and bake brownies and have a beautiful home with organized drawers and closets where you open and there are baskets, labeled baskets. And then I changed my mind again, and I keep changing my mind. And here's where I'm going with this. I'm going in the direction of it is okay to change your mind constantly. One of my favorite expressions that I created, I will take credit for it because I created it, unless I didn't, and I don't know that I didn't, but I really do believe I did, is that we reserve the right to change our minds. You guys, we reserve the right to change our minds as often as we want to. And I don't know about you, but I have a feeling, I have a hunch that you are as big as a perfectionist as I am, where we just want to get it right. Like, our desire is to make the right decision, and it can almost be paralyzing and keep us from making any decisions at all because we want to just get it right. And we feel guilty or bad for constantly changing our minds. And I'm here to say it is okay. Let's give each other permission to change our minds as much as possible until we really, truly land on the right decision. And this is how I'm going to give you an example of when I was in love with someone struggling with addiction, how I changed my mind so often. Some days when the drinking and the drugs were really bad, I was convinced that I needed to leave. My mind was made up. Usually happened at the beginning of our relationship, where drugs and alcohol got really out of control on weekends. So like on a Saturday night when he was, out with his buddies and not coming home, or he was passed out on the couch, or he was locked himself in a room, drinking, watching sports, or whatever the situation was, I was like, okay, that's it. My mind is made up. I am going to leave. I am going to call a lawyer come Monday. And then Monday would come and I'd be like, that's a lot of work. It's really expensive. I still kind of love him. I don't want to have to tell the kids because they're going to hate me. And what am I going to do about my, a job and money? And I started thinking about all the details. I started getting intimidated. And then I changed my mind. And I'd go, no, I'm going to wait till next weekend. Let's see how this week pans out. And I change my mind and I decide to stay. That is okay. That is better than okay. That is perfectly acceptable. I am a grown woman above the age of 18. I reserve the right to change my mind. Even if I'm below 18 years old, my kids deserve the right to change their mind. We are allowed. We don't have to be afraid of making decisions because we're married to them, right? It's not like we can't have a conversation with the lawyer, sit there and say, I want a divorce, and then a week later call back and say, you know what, I'm going to put a freeze on this. I'm not sure this is actually what I want to move forward with. Thank you, but I'll be in touch if I ever do decide to move forward. We can investigate. We can feel things out, knowing that we're not married to this decision, right? So, and here's the truth. I changed my mind 1,000 times about whether I should leave or stay in this relationship, in this marriage, over the next 10 years. I would tell my family, okay, I'm leaving. And then I wouldn't. Or my friends, it's okay. And if people judge us for constantly changing our minds, it's because they're not in our shoes and they don't understand how complicated it is. And how sometimes just talking about the decision that we think we're going to make brings us clarity and helps us arrive at the point where we recognize we're not ready to make that decision. Just allowing the freedom of our imagination and our voices and our discussions with other people and in going into new territory, into the decisions that we think we are going to make, and being creative in that territory allows us to say, okay, I'm imagining myself moving through this decision that I think I should make, and I'm not really liking how I feel in my imagination, therefore I don't think I should make it. I'm going to backtrack. That is okay, guys. That's okay. That's us giving ourselves permission to be creative and move around and figure things out on our own. If we go into our therapist's office and we sit there and we say, okay, I need you to help me figure out how to leave. And your therapist is finally like getting so excited that you're, drawing a line in the sand and you're actually leaving because this is what you've been working on for 6 months. And then you go in to the next appointment and you are scared to tell them that you actually don't want to move forward. You reserve the right to change your mind. And that therapist, if they're any good, will respect that decision. They're going to question you. They'll probably dig a little deeper into why. But it's okay, is what I'm saying. And here's the really good news, okay? Is that I actually ended up leaving. And I'll never forget the day that I decided it was it. Like, we crossed a line that we could never return. So I decided in a moment that was it. Now, it was a series of little moments, like I've said before, but then there was like that final moment where I was like, oh no, I'm done. Like, I am literally done. And he did everything he possibly could to try to get me to change my mind and stay. He did things that I was begging him to do when I wanted to stay with him. For example, I was begging him while we were together to get into a weekly AA meeting type of program. And when I finally made up my mind to leave and I told him, he was like, I will go to a meeting every day. I've located the meetings. I'm gonna go. Now, before I had made up my mind to go, like a week ago, that would have worked. That would have been enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to hang on a little bit longer. Let's see how these meetings play out. Let's see if you really do attend and follow through on your word. But when I finally made a final decision, there was nothing he could say. There was no promises he could make that would allow me to change my mind. And what's even more incredible is that some of my family members, when I told them that I was leaving, challenged me. And they said, Michelle, I don't know. I think you should wait until the kids get older and are you really sure you want to be a single mom to 3 kids under the age of 6? You're unemployed. You've been unemployed. You don't have a support group. He's going to take you to the cleaners with money. You're going to be all alone. That sounds like a very unattractive life. I think you should stay and wait it out. Put some money away in a bank account. Wait till the kids are older where they understand why you're doing what you're doing. They had all these beautiful reasons why I should stay. But they couldn't change my mind. Reason did not apply. I had made my mind up that come hell or high water, I was done. This was enough. And I can explain why I felt that way, but that's another podcast. I had professionals say to me, like a lawyer or a therapist say to me, Michelle, are you positive? This doesn't sound like a very healthy decision right now. It sounds like it's made in haste. Or, how are you, I had one lawyer be like, and how are you going to pay my bills? I didn't care. At that point I called a shelter and said, how long can you take a mom and your 3 kids? I did not care what obstacles stood in front of me. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Anything they were saying did not apply. I'd made up my decision. My mind was made up. And even, bless them, my husband's family members, some of them were like, really upset with my decision to leave. They didn't understand where I was coming from. They didn't get the full picture yet, and nor could they, right? Because they didn't live in my house. They were not me. They were not privy to all the information that because I wasn't sharing it with them out of, because I wanted to protect them. So I had to deal with that. All the pressure from all of these people telling me what I was doing did not make sense or was not in my best interest or could be easier if I just waited. That it did not change my mind, which is how you know when you know that your mind is made up. It's not the fact that we'll keep teeter-tottering and being wishy-washy and going back and forth, from changing our mind to changing our mind for the rest of our lives. That's not true. That's not going to happen to you. You're going to make up your mind. You're going to arrive at a final decision. I promise you, it will happen. It just might not be today. And in the meantime, do not beat yourself up for continuing to change your mind. You're experimenting. You're feeling things out. You're seeing how things go. Circumstances change. Addiction is unpredictable. You live with zero safety nets. There's no safety nets with addiction. You never know what you're going to get day to day. Like, there's no normal when you love someone suffering from addiction. So do not compare yourself to the people out there that you feel like, oh, of course they can make up their mind, easily and freely. You don't have those circumstances. And have faith in yourself and in the process that you will eventually make the perfectly correct decision for yourself. And you will be so convicted and convinced that no matter how many other people tell you or question your decision, you will be able to stand firm. You will be able to stand on and remain on solid ground, and you will remain focused in making your decision a reality. You will not be distracted by all of the noise that everybody else is making. Because the truth is, those people probably are giving you feedback based on fear. They're afraid for you. They're afraid for your future. And when I made that decision to finally leave my ex-husband, I was so sick and tired of living in fear. I was so ready for something new, something hopeful, something predictable, something safe, something loving and nurturing and kind. And I'm not talking about another man. I'm talking about all those things I could control in my own home with my own kids. I wanted that lifestyle, and I knew that if I just eliminated this addiction on a day-to-day basis, that I could create that I was wise enough and smart enough and good enough to be able to create that on my own. I was finally ready to start believing in myself enough to stop living in fear. And that is what convinced me to arrive at a decision that worked out so well for me. I am so grateful that I ignored everybody else. Now again, you guys, here I am, years and years and years later, and I'm still struggling with making decisions. It's far less, severe. It's a stinking bathroom, not a marriage, which is like, who cares, right? Poor you, wah, wah. You have to pick out your tile. But what I'm saying to you is that that ability to, or that desire to nail it, to get it right the first time, to make this perfect decision, it kind of doesn't go away. It's one of those things that follows you for the rest of your life. It has nothing to do with addiction. It has to do with your personality. And it actually can work for your good. So I'm using, again, what I learned in my relationship with addiction in my life now and saying, I reserve the right to change my mind 1,000 times. And I will know when I know when I've arrived at the right decision. And that is what I talk about with you guys when I say, listen to me, trust me. this situation that you are in that feels like crap right now, it feels hopeless, and you feel alone, and you feel desperate, and you feel like a screw up, and you don't know how things are going to get better, I promise you, every single thing you are learning in this really, really difficult time in your life will be used to help you when you get out of this time. It stinks for right now. I'm never going to tell you you shouldn't feel like it stinks. It does. It does. You are right for feeling this way. But have hope. It's not always going to feel this way. It's going to get better. You're going to get better. Your life is going to get better. And whatever you're learning right now are the hard lessons that you have been meaning to learn your entire life. And they will be used, you will use them over and over and over again in the future. And you will be able to excel at a rate that is incomparable to the people around you at things because you've gone through this difficult period and survived and made it out even stronger and even better. You will be able to get such a better life in your future because you have gone through this. So although it sucks, it is actually going to be used for good later on. And I know that to be true, and I can promise you that for sure because I am living proof of it. I am so stinking grateful for addiction. 10 years or longer for me, it was misery. It was a deep, dark, terrible depression that I felt I would never get out of. It was isolating and lonely. I had no friends. I was overweight. I was broke. I was living in a town I didn't ever anticipate living. My life was nothing where I thought it would be. And I felt like the biggest loser for allowing all of this crap to happen to me. Right? And then came that day where I decided to fight back, where I decided, no, I'm not going to take this narrative anymore. I'm not going to be a victim of my own life. I'm not going to be a martyr anymore. I'm not going to be just sit around and wait for him to get better because that day might never happen. And in my situation, it never did. And I thank God that I left. Now for you, leaving might not be the answer. You staying might be your final answer. That's okay too. And you know what? You reserve the right to change your mind at any time, any day. You do. So I hope you found freedom in this podcast to make decisions and allow yourself the creativity to explore the idea of changing your mind again. I support you. I believe in you. And I love you. You are not in this alone. I've got your back. And I'll talk to you next week. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.